If we can get quiet, I've got the talking stick.
Get ready to get us.
I got the talking stick. Everybody keep quiet.
Here you go.
Official one.
Official talking stick. Okay, we're gonna, Ed, sit down.
No, but that took too long to make that. That's Buffalo Raw.
Anyhow, if y'all can hear me above Ed.
We're trying to start the meeting.
We wanna rush this up, so we got a real great speaker. We may have to have him back 3 or 4 times to get all the information out of it that he has. Anyhow, there's some things coming up. I talked to Sandra, and Sandra lives in Gilmer. I don't know if you know her or not. I can't think of her last name. Anyhow, she was hoping to come tonight. She used to come all the time. Anyhow, she told me that there's going to be a powwow at Broken Bow, April the 5th at the high school. And also there is a stickball game in Weewonka, and that's 10 miles west of Idabel. So if anybody wants to go to those, I don't know for sure what day the stickball game is.
If you've never seen a stickball game, it is the little brother to war.
So, has anybody got anything else?
Cheeto.
Gene?
Yes, I got an invitation from the Cherokee Nation to the community meeting and photo event in Fort Worth at the Botanical Gardens, the 29th of this month. And it's from 9 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. He'll be speaking, the chief, at 11:30. This is a Cherokee. And you can get your Cherokee Nation photo and ID at the time. And let's see, culture activities will be conducted, and award-winning Cherokee Buddhist and National Treasure Tommy Wildcat will be there.
Let's go, we'll get it tail.
Has anybody got anything else? Because I know we want to get into our program real quick. Anything coming up anybody knows of? Bill, you got the program next month? Since you
this month.
I know you bumped it off this month. So you got it next month. Okay.
Be sure to remind him.
I'll have to.
3 times.
I'm gonna get Bill to introduce Otter, is the only thing that I know, and he can tell us.
I met Otter recently at a ceremony where grave markers were being placed, and you know, I just looked at him. He impressed me so much, and I thought we should get to know this guy better. And we have gotten to know him, and he has a love for Indian culture, especially that of the Cherokees. And, you know, he's from Gilmer, and it's just an honor to have him tonight. And like Ronnie said, I don't think he can cover everything he would like to cover tonight, so he's welcome to come back next month. Otter, it's a pleasure to have you, sir.
You don't even know what I'm watching. Wow. This man is called Smiling Otter, who tames the wind, by the elders that know him. And 30 years ago, a minister, a visiting evangelist, made a statement during his sermon one Sunday morning that the man that doesn't know who he is will never know what he is. And I sat there, I didn't hear another word the man said all day long, because his statement impacted me to the degree I was sitting there focusing. I know nothing about my family. When I was a child, most of my family was very dark-complected, black-haired, black-eyed. They had very Shalagi features. They all looked like him. And I'd ask my grandmother, "Who are we?" She said, "We're Black Dutch."
Yeah.
well, I can read. I'd go to the libraries and I'd dig and I'd dig and I'd dig, and I couldn't find any Black Dutch anywhere on this planet. Well, the day that minister made that statement, I told my wife, I said, I'm taking the weekend off. We're driving up to Dangerfield, and we're going to talk to the surviving members of the family. And that weekend, I found an old family Bible that I had a bunch of hand-penciled records in it that led me back to the 1835 census of Cherokee, east of the Mississippi, where I found two family names. Reverend John Hass, the Chalagi call him Bushy Head, and a guy named Archie Campbell. And I was shocked because here is a legal document that you have to handle like an archaeological artifact. This old Bible would fall apart in your hands, that ties us into the Black Dutch. Now then, a little bit of fun. How many of you have you've heard Black Dutch? How many here is Black Dutch? Yeah, okay. That means Cherokee. How many heard of the urban legend of a feral child raised by wolves in northeast Texas? No? Good, it's starting to die out. When I was a kid, I got adopted by a pack of red wolves in Cypress Creek. And I hunted for them, ran with them. When I get off down there in the bottom and my family had come try to find me, they couldn't because the wolves had let me know they were coming, and it was kind of neat. So mine has always been of the Indian mind, even though I didn't know I was one. And so I started following the Red Road. I wanted to learn about the traditions and the beliefs of my people. Started finding out some interesting things. The Lakota name for the creator, Tankashilawakantanka, translates in English, Tonka, creator. Sheila, the son of, Wakantanka, the great spirit or the great mystery. Depends on what Chalagi dialect you speak, of the old tongues, not what we talk today. In one dialect, the name for our creator was Yoa. In the other one, it was Yahweh. We referred to the Creator as Idoda. It literally translates Father, but in that context it means the three elder fires above. I never knew this. I thought these were primitive people. Then we come to Texas, and one day this Carissa Komakuru brother of mine, full-blood Raven Clan Kakalote, he walks up with this old book. He still got it. I wish I had it. And he opens it to a map and he says, "Hey, Otter, look at this. Does that look familiar?" And I get to looking at it. Yeah. So we made a copy of the page and made a transparency where we could overlay it on present-day Texas maps. This map came from the early 1600s when the French explorers came through here looking for gold. You know how much gold is in the iron ore around here? The problem is it'll kill you to get it out of it. All the mercury fumes. Well, they found a Cherokee village on Big Cypress Creek up there where Boggy Creek comes from the north and joins it. I own 90 acres of land where that village was located, that I inherited through my family. Because when the Texans started moving in here, they realized it wasn't a good idea to be an Indian, so they started calling themselves Black Dutch, and folks, we're still here. So I guess you could call me a sixth generation Texas Cherokee. Well, that got me interested in the history of this land. And now we come to Dragging Canoe. How many are familiar with the name? Principal chief in Tennessee. When he passed away, he had a war chief. Oh wait, I digress. Let me back up. This is funny. Cherokee settled in Texas near the Red River, pressed further south by American settlement, In 1820, about 60 families under Chief Bowl, Diwali, settled in Rusk County near the Catoes. As Americans settled that area, distrust grew between them and the Cherokee. Hoping to gain a legal title to their land, the Cherokee invested a great deal of energy in cultivating a relationship with Mexico. Hoping to protect this relationship, they remained neutral between Texas and Mexico during the Texas Revolution. Now, we're going to go back and correct some Shalagihiyele de Tejas history. Dragon Canoe passed away, and there was a man named Spring Frog, Tuanta. He was Dragon Canoe's war chief. This is him. I'm going to pass this around. He gathered up about 200 families and came to the ancestral lands here. 1782. God, he looks like my Uncle Donald. In 1789, the alcalde of the Spanish lands there took Spring Frog to Mexico City, and through whatever machinations they had to go through, he got a land grant to lands in what is now East Texas, and that land grant was signed by the King of Spain. It took me 28 years to find it, but I found it. This was 1789. When Diwali, the Bowl, came to Texas, he was following Spring Frog. How many know that Diwali was the peace chief under Dragon Canoe? You ever heard this in a history book?
No.
History is his story. The winners write it, folks, and it ain't always the truth. I mean, my wife got tickled at me today. I was watching a documentary on Abraham Lincoln, and they're still trying to whitewash the Civil War. I'm curious, how can an avowed atheist become a Christian after he dies? You know? Anyway. Well, in 1863, during the Texas Revolution, Spring Frog's land grant was recognized as Philosola's Cherokee grant. And here it is. I have some maps that cover it, and here's a present day map that covers it. Ancestral Cherokee land. The Cherokee trace came down across the Red River out of southwestern Arkansas and southeastern Oklahoma. The old settlers moved there long before the Trail of Tears. Went right straight through here, all the way to the Gulf Coast and down into Old Mexico, and there's a bunch of Cherokee in Old Mexico right now that are recognized by the Mexican government. And Sequoia is buried there with them. A child has found his grave. And it was just like Sequoia's prophecy. It was in a cave. And Sequoia said that when his grave was found, there would be a coming together of the people, and you're the evidence of that right now. People pursuing their history, their heritage, and their knowledge. And I'm shooting from the hip. I didn't have anything prepared. I didn't know what kind of people y'all are. Here's Tachi. This is interesting. He was a Western Cherokee chief. His portrait got burned up in a museum, and I got a kind of a kick out of this. He refused to go into Oklahoma. He came down into Texas, right? Now I want y'all to pass this around and look at the knife he's wearing in his sash. Gosh, this is fun. I found one. It is known as the Cherokee buoy. I had to make my own sheath, however. But I get to represent my people. Now I'm going to talk about a little bit more about the history of Northeast Texas. June the 14th, there's going to be a to-do over in Morris County, Texas, and this gets into the Confederate history too, unfortunately. I have a great-great-grandpa that's buried there that does not have a Confederate service marker on his grave, so we're going to put one there. And by the way, Bill, it's the Lone Star Color Guard, not Native American Color Guard. I'm glad Sarge didn't shoot me. We're going to be putting a marker on his grave, and the sons of the Confederate veterans are going to be there. And I'll be doing my thing. But the funny part of it is, his daddy was a man named John Wingate Truitt. He came here in 1839 from Alabama, left his family in Alabama because he wouldn't have gotten nothing in 1839 if he'd have brought, well, wait a minute. Yeah, that's when they certified it. He built a cabin in Morris County. And the Truitt cousins have we're about 75% done with restoring the cabin. It's the oldest cabin of its kind on the original site in Texas. And we're kind of proud of it because 75% of the original structure was there. And we're going to have this graveside honoring ceremony like Bill saw over there at the Snodgrass Cemetery. And then they're going to march me and my son across the field to Mr. Wingate's cabin, and they're going to swear us in on the front porch where Edward Robinson Truitt grew up. But he only got 320 acres because he had to leave his family in Alabama. If he'd have brought them with him, they'd have known he was an Indian and he wouldn't have got nothing. This is a kick in the head here. I just found this. Truitt family didn't even know about this. Republic of Texas, County of Red River. Second class, number 112, 320 acres. This is to certify that Wingate Truitt, spelled T-R-E-W-I-T, we spell it T-R-U-I-T-T. You ever notice those people were just barely literate? Wingate Truitt is entitled to a conditional head right of 320 acres of land agreeably to the provisions of the Act passed January the 4th, 1839, extending donations of land to late immigrants. That I get a kick out of because we were already here. Given under our hands this 13th day of November, 1839, attested I.G. Wright, at Red River County, I think it says Extension Office. I don't know why they had to do all this. Boy, they got with the program with those old quill pens. But the funny thing is, it's also signed by a guy named A.J. Fowler. Chief something or other, Red River County. My mother's maiden name is Fowler. And just recently I found out her daddy was Choctaw. So you never know what you're going to find, folks. And we're having a ball. I'm having the time of my life, even though I'm going to quit having birthdays. Every time I have one, I'm a year older. And, but the history is so incredible. If you walk into the museum in Gilmer, anybody ever been in there?
What, Gilmer?
Have you looked at the Cato exhibit? You remember those top two pots?
Okay.
That's Cherokee symbology on those pots. I took Bear, big old Blackfoot Indian, in there one day. I said, come on, I'll show you something, Bear. And he walks in there and he looks at it and he starts laughing. He said, who's the expert that identified these? So yeah, I'm having a blast with it. And the most fun I have with these guys when I go to the powwows and I see some Cherokee wearing a Lakota war bonnet or a Blackfoot with the feathers standing straight up. We Cherokee didn't wear those. We wore turbans like this. We were a little more civilated than the rest of them. And a friend of mine gave me this otter skin and this trade wool that's in it, which is about 200 years old. And the next time he saw the otter skin and the trade wool, I'd made this traditional Cherokee headdress. He immediately grabbed it and started trying to take it apart to see if I did it in a traditional manner. I did. And, but yeah, I'm having the time of my life, and it's funny. I make flutes, I make the rattles, I make drums, I do beadwork, and I've never had anybody to teach me how. I'm convinced that within every one of us there is a genetic, hereditary memory that we can tap into if we'll just listen to it. And I've had people pick up some of my crafting. Where'd you learn to do that? I just did it. Cheyenne. Like I said, I'm an orphan to the Cherokee. There are 13 different groups of Cherokee in the state of Texas that refuse to recognize one another. Mr. Ridge, who's a descendant of Major Ridge, has asked me to join the Southern Cherokee Nation, and I have yet to tell him that it was one of my great-great-great-grandpas that killed his great-great-great-grandpa after they sold the lands in the East for lands in Oklahoma. I don't know how he's going to take that. You know, but to see something like this blesses me no end, because we're still here. And under old Southern law, now here's another kick I found out when I started digging through the family tree, folks. Genetically, I'm more red than black and I'm more black than white. I inherited this from 2 fourth great-grandfathers and one great-grandfather that snuck in kind of late, but he did marry a full-blood Cherokee woman, Sarah Ann Thompson out of Tallapoosa County, Alabama. But then I found 2 of my ancestors on the slave register in Alabama in 1850. Well, I didn't find it, my wife found it. I thought, cool. I'm exactly what this country is supposed to be all about. And I don't know, I'm having the time of my life. What Bill saw me do at the graveside, when the elders gave me the name Smiling Otter who tames the wind, I thought, what are they talking about? Well, about 1.5 years later, I discovered the Siatanka, the courting flute. It was part of our courtship ritual. When a young man became enamored with a young woman, he'd make a flute, compose a song for her, go sit outside her father's lodge, play the song. She peeks out the lodge skin door, you know, and says, ooh, I like what I see. So she'd grab a robe, go out there, sit down next to him, wrap a robe around her shoulders. That told everybody, stay away, private conversation. If she didn't like what she saw, she dumped cold water on him and he had to leave. So this business about go take a cold shower, that doesn't belong to white man. We've been doing this for 4,000 years. But when I discovered the Siatanka, and I can't explain this, it was like I'd been playing them all my life. I'm going to play you a Cherokee melody. We'll see how many of you recognize it, all right? you will never be at a large Cherokee gathering that you will not hear that. It's fascinating history.
I knew what you were gonna play before you played it.
Blew me away.
You started playing and then.
When I was a child, I thought, when I first started playing them, I just played whatever came to mind. And I was at this melody. I thought it was something I made up. And then one day I heard it. And I asked an old white-haired gentleman by the name of Ed Barganier, who was Bear Clan, a subclan of the Wild Potato Clan of the Challaigee, who grew up in Oklahoma. Do you know this melody? And I said, I'm going to play it for you. I want you to listen. So I played it, and I finished. I looked at him, and there were tears rolling down his old blind cheeks. I said, Papa Bear, what's wrong? He said, that's a lament from the Trail of Tears. And so I've been getting this education that seems to come from out there somewhere. And I can't explain it. All I can do is just say, whoopee, and be an otter. Boy, once more down the mudslide, that sucker might be dry tomorrow. And so I'm having the time of my life. Now I said, this pipe, this chanupa, this sacred pipe, I rescued it out of a trading post. We prayed with the pipe. The bowl represents Mother Earth. The stem represents our Creator. Now right now it's just an artifact, but when you join the stem and the bowl, that becomes the chanupa. At that time, you need to load it, and folks, we don't put nothing funny in the pipe. The kinnikinnick is all natural, and it will not alter your perception of reality. Reality is strange enough as it is. And when you light